All right, FC Cincinnati fans, admit it. Saturday took that edge off a little bit, huh? The guys teased me about being doom and gloom last week, but I think that was one tough group of matches to get through. Turns out FC Cincinnati just needed a surprise beating to kick it back in gear. We got some fun material to break down today. I see a lot of shouting about how FC Cincinnati is back, and then another group of people over on the other side still wondering about their ability to knock off top teams around the league. I was just a guest on an Atlanta podcast right before airing and coming over here, and they have cautious optimism looking at Wednesday because their club's doing well. The crazy thing I think about the Eastern Conference is how many good clubs there are right now in the league. Cincinnati does enjoy a nice buffer, but I think that final sprint to the playoffs is going to keep everybody busy, including us. This is the part of the season I love, though, and I hope you stick with us as things get fast and fiery. I want to share it with the people I love as well. So let's bring in the guys of Cincinnati Soccer Talk for episode 343. I think to be a guest host on tonight's show, your name has to start with B. Let's go ahead and get them in here. First up, we'll start with our humble roots and that CST drumbeat. Mr. Bill Wolf, how you doing?
I'm good. Ooh, we needed that last Wednesday, didn't we? That felt good. It's been a long time since we've got multiple goals and a shutout and just really felt like we dominated a team. So, woo, good stuff.
Boston, how did you forget this?
I'm sorry, Brian.
He's out of practice. It's okay.
I didn't forget it. I just couldn't find the button in time, so I just pretended like it was not a part of the show, and you've ruined it. So there goes my music. All right, but next up, the Fort Wayne's finest sensation, Brian Biedenbach. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, you got it right. I'm all good, man. Just living the dream now. Cincinnati's on the uptick. My boy had a game tonight, won, so brought home a winner. And, yeah, all good. Living the life tonight.
All right. Well, good for the fam, right?
That's right.
Spirits at home.
That's right.
All right. Well, no snide remark from me because Brian Weigel spotted me a ticket on Saturday. Thanks again, sir, for letting me hang out with the fam.
I was just going to say you had to hang out with at least two of the three kids were a little crabby. So we had a long day on Saturday. We had two soccer games. My daughter scored a goal. I could not believe it. Very proud of my daughter. She's awesome. She's like the kid that like does not care in practice, and then it's like flips a switch at the game. So that was a pretty cool little surprise. But yeah, awesome to get back off the schneid. And we got to take in some interesting moments Saturday night, some interesting views, some interesting reactions from some of our players. So I'm sure we'll talk about that here in a bit.
Yeah, weird week. You have we're all feeling pretty crummy after Columbus, especially if you went or you watched that game live, and it was hard not to feel beat down. Then Miami, you hang in there, you do so well. The air gets let out of the bag a little bit, and then New York. It is the lowest of lows and the highest of highs, in my opinion. It's in everything in between. So I think this is going to be a fun one as we break it down. Before we get into it, though, we want to give a shout out to Apollo Home, the season-long sponsor of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. They've been there for us all season. You know what? They're there for you if anything goes wrong at home. And they've got an August back-to-school special right now offering $38 HVAC cooling tune-up. Get your AC checked before the end of the summer. Or, it's about that time of year. Go ahead and give them a call before winter shows up and make sure the old heat still works. You can visit ApolloHome.com or give them a phone call to get that locked up. Best and worst. We're going to move right into it. Brian Weigel.
I apologize if I take anybody's best and worst because I'm kind of riffing this a little bit too. But going to go with my double best for the week. Santi Arias, I think, is starting to become everything that we could have hoped for in the pedigree that he was, kind of sold to us as. The guy went toe-to-toe with Jordi Alba. He threw in some shots when he needed to against Sergio Busquets. And overall versus Miami was that guy that's like kind of pushing everybody along, saying, we're not afraid of him. Let's take it to him. And I love seeing that. Played a ton of minutes and played just wonderfully. In I don't want to say the absence of Alvaro Barreal, but I mean, in two matches, he barely did anything on the Miami match. And then, of course, he sat out versus New York. So good for him. And another awesome person to see was Yakuba playing super well in 2 matches. So those 2 guys are my best. And this is kind of a weird best of the week, but Boston and I were sitting there watching the game Saturday night, and we're behind the goal. Roman Celentano was in front of us, and the ball was going towards the Bailey. And Lucho got on the ball, and he nutmegged somebody, and then did a pass that I can't remember what it was to, but everybody's just like, oh, and literally Roman throws both hands on top of his head and opens his mouth, looks left and right like, oh my God. And it was hilarious to see even guys that see Lucho every day react like that. And there's this weird thing out there, like with Lionel Messi, like, oh, he's the only guy in the league that can think about that pass. And I said, that's not true. You have not been watching Lucho Acosta this year. The thing with Messi and Lucho, I mean, there's a lot of difference, billions of dollars, but Messi makes that pass as Lucho makes that pass. Messi just does it nearly 100% of the time, or Lucho does it like 65% of the time. But he's a special player, and you saw it on repeat Wednesday and Saturday.
Yeah, it was a fun one. I know exactly the player you're talking about. How cool is that? When you're having so much fun out there, you can be like, oh, sick play from the goal, and just enjoying your life if you're Roman. I don't get to do that. I don't get to go to work and see somebody make a cool journal entry and be like, awesome accounting guy.
Oh my God, you carried the 5. Great job, buddy.
But how great would it be if you did? Just tomorrow.
I think that's a choice, Boston. I mean, really. I mean, you really could celebrate every time somebody does something like that.
I just want Roman's life. He's out there living his best one. He did have a lot of fun. All right, Bill, you spoke. We'll throw it to you.
Brian spoke too, but that's fine. Anyway, best for me, the sha-la-la, right? The goal celebration. It's now catching on. It's like a virus. It's spreading outside the Bailey. It's been so fun in the Bailey to watch that. Obviously, Miami went nuts. People were standing and they were jumping. And it was, 2 sections outside of the Bailey. But even in New York, where it was a little bit calmer and people weren't, quite like as excited at that point. They were still in their seats and they were doing the arm movements and stuff. And it's just really fun to see the stadium starting to learn what we're doing and be part of it, and not have it to where it's just, the Bailey doing stuff, but it's the whole stadium getting involved. So that was the best for me. It's always fun for us when everybody else wants to be part of it. The worst, for me, it's just, wow, there's just been way too much soccer, to be honest. I mean, Gold Cup, World Cup, Leagues Cup, Open Cup, international breaks, CONCACAF Champions League, Nations League. I mean, the World Cup was women, so I know that's not the same, but still, just from a standpoint of the rosters themselves, they just can't support this. And you can just see like how hard it was for us to recover from the Gold Cup, honestly. And I feel like after the Gold Cup, we just never didn't recover until just like recently Wednesday. And I think unfortunately it's getting to the point where maybe we're just playing too many games, and MLS needs to do something to ensure that we can not hurt players and can see the quality of football we expect to see.
Wait till we had CONCACAF, Bill.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, we haven't been part of it, but other teams have, right? Look at LAFC, right? I mean, they went deep in the CONCACAF Champions League, and they were awful for what, a month, several weeks after that. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it affects teams, and obviously we lost Vasquez and Miazga to the Gold Cup, and we played through that, and that was a struggle for us, and we were not the same team. And you see that continuously. The best teams are punished for being the best teams.
I was just about to say it's hell being good, Bill.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good problem to have, but at the same time, it seems like from a league standpoint, we are, we're diminishing our league by doing that. So
I'm trying to decide if I want to let Brian go. You know what? We'll throw it to you, Weigel, before I get started on this.
Oh, you're talking about replying? We're still not playing the amount of games that some of the championship clubs play, but we're also starting to get into more international competitions. I don't know. I like it.
But does the MLS have the roster depth for that?
Well, that's so that my point is that this summer or this winter, this winter is going to be make or break for the league if it wants to take the next step, and they have to increase the roster spots. I mean,
Yeah.
you need more flexibility. You can't go into the season saying Isaiah Foster's my left back. You need a better player. You need better players all around. You need that extra center back. So I'm very excited to see what's going to happen. I think The Athletic or somebody wrote an article that came out past couple of days about what is happening behind the scenes, and it's very, very apparent that there's a big transition coming with. I mean, you look at Miami, and you see Jordi Alba and Busquets and Messi, and they're great to have. But also, like, there's technicalities why Jordi Alba's there, and there's technicalities why Joseph is there. That team is playing under a different set of rules. I mean, I've battled that. I think it's good, but when you see guys like that, they're just heads and tails above everybody else. And you have Alvaro Barreal and Santi Arias, who are arguably two of the best wing backs, and you have Jordi Alba. It's like, come on. So it's going to be a very exciting offseason.
I see a common theme in everybody's best and worst on the YouTube and on Facebook. I won't read them because if I do, I think I'll steal Brian's best. So instead, as you talk, Brian, I'm going to put them up on the screen.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just shout it out. I think Eric Schmidt on YouTube stole mine exactly. My best was Brett Halsey. I think that guy coming into a starting position, even for a night, just to see what he had. I think he's a workhorse, and he's not afraid of anybody. He's not the technical player that Barreal is, but he gets to that end line, and you look at the chances that he creates. The Boupendza goal off a deflection that he shot, and another one that he pinged off of Boupendza. I think he was going for Vasquez on the back post. I just think, man, he's got an upside that we didn't know we had at left back, sitting behind Barreal. So I was really excited to see that. My worst, man, it's for me, I really wanted to pin this on a single player, but I don't know that I can pin it on a single player, but just taking the foot off the gas against Miami. Like we had the game and we had chances at the end of the game, and a particular player pulled up a couple times, but it wasn't just him. You know, we
Sergio Santos.
There you go. There you go. I felt like that was a little low-hanging fruit if we all had him for our worst. But yeah, 3 times. Pulling up 3 times, slowing down when ball's played across the middle. And, you know, you see Premier League players, not that that's him, but sliding to try and get a foot, anything, on a ball that's out of their reach. And you see him kind of slow down and not go for it. So that was my worst. Again, it wasn't just him. It was, I think our subbing pattern was poor. I think pulling particular guys off the pitch was a bad move at those times. But, man, we had that game and we didn't close it out.
We had some chances.
You don't have many instances like this where one team is just like, this is our cup. We have nothing else to play for. Probably not making the playoffs. Let's just throw everything. Let's throw 5 attackers out there. I mean, the only time you ever get that is a legit cup final, like a MLS Cup final, something like that. So it's wild. And I will say this. I do not think Pat Noonan was outcoached. He outcoached Tata Martino through the first 60 minutes, especially the first 45. And yes, did he make some weird substitute patterns? Yeah. But guess what? We got league games, and we have to do the Supporter Shield's the meaningful trophy. The U.S. Open Cup, while it'd be nice to have and nice to lock up, it's meaningless. It's a dying tournament. It needs to be gone. So congrats to Messi.
Sounds like a guy who just got knocked out.
Elvis Powell just misjumped. Elvis Powell just misjumped. He mistimed a jump.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Ryan. I don't think Noonan was out coached. I think the players just didn't finish the game. I mean, we still had the chances. So, yeah.
Well, 2-0. I wasn't at the game, unfortunately. I was at a work trip, and I tell you what, I felt pretty good seeing a 2-goal lead. You want to know where I was, guys? This is totally random, but you want to know where I was? I was sitting at the Columbus Clippers minor league baseball game instead of watching Messi. Oof.
Loser.
Was it exciting?
It was brutal. It was brutal. I don't know. We were talking to.
Is that your best or worst?
That's not something you admit there, pal.
It is definitely the worst. I had tickets to go. I wish I could have been there. But you know what? Duty called. and we had to take care of it that way. Best, I think, is the rebound. FC Cincinnati uses the Columbus game to wake up, plays Messi really well, because I think the only team to date to keep him off the board. And yeah, he had some assists, but overall, I thought FCC played Miami very well, especially after watching teams get roasted by the guy. And then go and have a statement win, saying they're back, they're ready to play the second half of the season versus New York. That is my best. I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
All right, it's that time of the show where we get to hang out with some of our great friends from Apple TV's MLS Season Pass, making her return to the show after just a heck of a past couple months. We got Kyndra de St. Aubin. She's, again, been a mainstay in the North Midwest, broadcasting World Cups galore, and now she's taking time to chat with us going into FC Cincinnati versus Atlanta. Kyndra, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Your frequent flyer miles doing pretty well right now?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I skipped right over gold and went straight to platinum after that.
Man.
I got an email the other day that my daughter was silver. So, she came to Australia with my husband for a bit. So we all just kind of jumped right over when you have that long of a flight. But, it was well worth the travel. That's for sure.
Wow. So as I mentioned, we spoke to you back in April, had a ton going on. Tell us about your experience being one of the lead broadcasters on the world stage down in Australia.
I say, I think the biggest thing is that, it is truly an honor to be asked to do something like that. And I think because of the stories you get to tell. And before I even headed over there, and I was talking to my daughter's soccer team, and a lot of the moms were like, hey, and the dads were like, hey, you're going over there, and who should we watch, and this and that and the other. And my daughter's 9. And I said, you know what? You got to tell these stories of these ladies, aside from the phenomenal soccer that you saw. And I think expanding it to 32 teams didn't hurt the women's game one bit, or the women's tournament one bit. I think everybody showed really well. So I'd say the best thing about it is just being able to tell the stories of these phenomenal countries and these women, and some of the things that they have to go through to get to where they're at. And so, yeah, I mean, it was phenomenal. Every game, it was like you didn't know who was going to win. You could show up and really not know. And then sometimes you'd be disappointed, like France, Morocco. I was expecting a better game, especially with all the connections and at the point of the tournament that it was. But truly going into every game, you really didn't know who was going to show up and who was going to win that game because of the competitive nature and the pride in those games. So not a negative thing to say about it. It was phenomenal. Enjoyed every minute of it. But yeah, I love to be able to tell the stories and really do those ladies and those teams justice at that level, at that height of their careers and their lives and what they're playing for at that moment.
Do you have a funny moment or a super memorable moment that wasn't on camera that you can just say you'll take back? Or hell, it might have been meeting a superstar or something. What was your sticking out moment from that event?
I think a big piece of it that I took away from this tournament, especially going to the different cities, being able to be based in Sydney, but flying to Melbourne, flying to Brisbane, flying to Adelaide, seeing like how much Australia really embraced this tournament and the advertisements and every, airport we would go to, and then just experiencing how different the cities were and experiencing that culture. And I was partnered with John Strong, and he forced me into trying a lot of different culinary things, because he's like, why else are we here? That's like sort of his motto, like jokingly. And that's the same motto he has when he travels with Stu Holden when he does men's games, is why else are we here? So, he had every single thing mapped out before we even got where we were going, what coffee shop we were going to hit up, this like world famous barista, where we were going to go for lunch, where we were going to go for dinner, where we were going to hit breakfast. And I am like not a three meal a day person. So I got to try a bunch of new things with an awesome crew traveling around. And then on top of it, just a lot of great cities, and people were incredible, very welcoming, but no moment where I was like, what am I doing? Or, every time we'd go to a stadium and you do the selfie and you do the on game, the pregame hit, it's kind of this moment where you're like, wow, like how ridiculous is this to be here in this moment, and celebrate these incredible ladies. And maybe the best one was honestly the Germany-South Korea game, when Germany, you could tell when the whistle blew, they didn't realize the Colombia result. They didn't realize that had happened and that they were knocked out in the group stage. I don't think it had been communicated to them on the field. So watching a player like Alexander Pop kind of walking around in disbelief, and then finding out as her teammates and coaching staff are coming on the field that they were bounced from the tournament and not, make it out of the group. Those are the kind of moments that you're just watching this energy and this real raw emotion of these players. And there's quite a few. We watched the USA Sweden game from a restaurant down the street from our hotel, and the restaurant was packed with lots of people just enjoying a nice night, and nobody was paying attention to the game except for a few US fans at that moment, because it was like a Friday night or something. I can't even remember. But all of a sudden the penalty shootout came, and everybody there was cheering like crazy every time the US missed and Sweden scored. It was like, you just felt that, like, the vibe that US always gets when they're expected to win everything, especially at the women's level. All of a sudden, everyone was a Sweden fan. So those are just kind of like the fun little things. We're like, oh, okay. All of a sudden, you guys care about this game, when the US misses and Sweden scores. So it was great. There wasn't a negative thing about it. I can't express enough my gratitude for being able to do it and share it with my family. And I think, they were there for 2.5 weeks. I don't think they left any stone unturned in Sydney. So it was a great experience.
I'm still walking around the house humming the little jingle from every commercial. Every time you go to the commercial break and back, it was the coolest sound effect. Anyway, Cincinnati's hosting the U.S. women for a friendly in September, and we're excited to have them. Of course, now it's going to be different, right? A whole new manager. What was your assessment of the U.S. women in the World Cup, and what do you think they need to improve on? Because it all starts again now, right? And start all over and then rebuild.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one because clearly they have, and it sounds funny me saying clearly they have the talent because they didn't find a way to get it done. But if you look at that roster and what they have available to them, even without the players that they were missing in like a Mallory Swanson or, Katarina Macario or whatever, like with the talent that they have and they had plenty of ammunition to move on to the next round and quite possibly win the tournament, which they didn't. So when I look at this group, I'm kind of thinking it's that weird innate thing where they are missing this drive, this passion. And maybe it sounds really cliche, but sometimes when you get down to the nitty gritty of it, what else could it be in that moment? And yes, it may be Vlatko, and we can talk about substitution patterns. You can talk about the way he uses his bench and rotation of players and the front three having never played together until that first game of the World Cup, or he had never managed in big tournaments before until the Olympics and this World Cup. And those are the two tournaments they didn't finish well in. So maybe he was just a little out of his element in that regard. But at the end of the day, with just the players that they could throw out there, whether it was the 11 on the pitch or the substitutions or someone coming off the bench, they should be able to get the job done. So it's hard for me not to go to just that innate drive and competitiveness and willingness to get the job done and fight till the end. And, that's some of what you hear Carly Lloyd talk about and some of the players, even from the 99s. I heard Julie Foudy talk about it in her podcast, and she was over there for some of these games and just saying like, no, I'm not ready to move on. You got to sit in this for a moment. That's how you learn from these moments, is sitting in this moment where you never want to feel this again, watching someone else, hoist the trophy and watching someone else celebrate. You never want to feel that way again. And it's okay to sit in that for a moment and sort of reflect, and missing that sort of like, it's not okay to lose. It's not okay to get outplayed. It's not okay to do this, that, and the other. And, everything that was made at the selfies on the field and the dancing and that was after a draw in group play. It wasn't even after a knockout round. So I think they were maybe just missing that little bit of edge. And, we'll see what of these young players can find a way to rekindle that and carry that on to this next, because it doesn't slow down. I mean, the Olympics is right around the corner, and then it's another World Cup. And I just think this group is talented enough that they're going to have to find that drive and that motivation once again, because clearly they have the ability. Regardless, you could stick anybody anywhere on that field talent-wise, and they should be able to get the job done, and they just didn't.
Beyond that, I mean, do you think that the rest of the world has closed that gap somewhat? I mean, do you think that played into it at all?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's the thing. We keep saying they're catching up. They're already there. I mean, and we're not just talking about the top nations like a Spain. You know, we saw Netherlands in the 2019 Women's World Cup, France, of course, Germany, and others. And a lot of, you know, top teams were bounced early. We just talked about Germany, Brazil, and you look down the line. But some of those other nations, they aren't closing the gap. I think they've closed it. And then when you even saw with the 32 teams and some of the nations that don't call them lesser, they don't like to be called that, but they're just not ranked as well, and they don't have as many things provided to them, like a Haiti or like a Nigeria or like a Jamaica. They have closed the gap, and you can see the technical ability of these players and the way they read the game and defensive shape and building out of the back, and goalkeeping, I think, was phenomenal in this tournament, which we've seen before, you know, that sometimes that can be the big gap, is if you have a team, but their goalie isn't great, that's where they get crushed. I think that was a major improvement. So I think that the other countries have closed that gap, and there will be no opportunity, I don't think, ever again for any country to three-peat like the U.S. had the opportunity to do. I think, you know, if you get a back-to-back champion, maybe, but I think a three-peat, because of the nature of the way everybody has just closed that gap and is there, it's not going to happen again. That was probably it, and that's a good thing. That's a great thing for this game, for the women's game. I love that. In Australia, I mean, look at Australia. Like, yes, they were the home country, but you know, they have the quality there, and we saw what England can do.
Yeah. If you don't mind, you were in Atlanta. We're going to switch gears on you. We're going to switch back to good old Major League Soccer. The thing we know best. I like to pretend I know a lot about World Cups, but you were in Atlanta. That one shocked me. Absolutely shocked. Nashville is a pretty good team. Like defensively, that's always been their forte. And then you throw Mukhtar in there, and now they've got an offense. What a beatdown! I didn't see it coming.
But you guys tell me though, you've witnessed FC Cincinnati, right? And the schedule and the ups and downs and the emotions of the games that they've had to go through, whether it was US Open Cup or Leagues Cup, and how they've lost those games. And did you maybe wonder how they were going to rebound in this next game because of that? It's an emotional, mental toll that these teams are taking, and the highs and the lows of that, and hosting Messi. And that's what I felt like with Nashville. I wasn't sure what team was going to show up, because at the end of the day, on a regular day, that should be a better game. That should not be the scoreline that we saw with Atlanta, Nashville, based on that. Even without Walker Zimmerman, that should not be the scoreline that we normally see in that match. But I do think that maybe even Nashville underestimated the emotional, mental, physical toll that the Leagues Cup final took on them, because that's just a lot. And they weren't playing well before the break. You know, they weren't playing well before Leagues Cup. And then all of a sudden they hit this groove in Leagues Cup, and they had some tough wins and penalty shootouts, not extra minutes per se, because they didn't do that, but even just the added time and then the heat and then penalty shootouts to grind out those wins. I wasn't sure what Nashville team we were going to see. I wasn't expecting that, but I just really wondered if there was going to be a bit of a hangover from that Leagues Cup final and everything that went into that run, and then losing the way that they did.
No more mentioning penalty shootouts. I'm flashbacks.
Traumatized.
Leagues Cup, U.S. Open Cup. If the penalty shootouts do not like us this year.
When you got
but you guys are still sitting at you're still sitting at the top though. So you know, when at the end of the day we're talking, I heard you guys talking Supporter Shield. You know, win an MLS Cup. I mean, that's the next focus here. You turn the page, and I mean, you know, that's the real opportunity for this team, and what Pat Noonan has them doing, even with that schedule, that crazy schedule that FC Cincinnati has endured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 10 points free and clear at the top, thanks to St. Louis giving us a little bit more wiggle room this past week. FC Cincinnati, if you look at their schedule, you follow the team all year long. Do you think they can get the job done? I mean, that's 3 wins and an extra point.
I think, first of all, I think absolutely yes. And I think what's been proven so far is because of the way that they've been managed, not meaning just Pat Noonan, I'm saying the roster, the rotation of players, the confidence in some of the younger guys that have even just come in as of late, spreading out some of the love when necessary, grinding out the wins. And Pat Noonan said it in his post-game press conference after the New York City win, is he never doubts this group. And you have to go in that way with this group. And I think that's the way they feel themselves. So when you look down the stretch, I think it's going to be really important to manage those minutes and find those rotations and have confidence. And a lot of those players have had minutes. So that's been going to be helpful down this stretch. You've got to win your games at home. That's got to take first priority for Pat Noonan in this club. Is if you have an opportunity to go on the road and not play like you don't care if you get the result, but just understanding that you need your guys the freshest for a home match and capitalize on that home crowd, that you may have to rotate slightly on the road and give that an opportunity. Not that guys won't be available, but is that the opportunity to really give them some rest, some respite, even those guys that hate to come off the field like Luciano Acosta. I mean, he'll fight you tooth and nail to stay on the field whenever he can, and Pat knows that. But at the end of the day, you got to win those games at home. And what do you guys have left? Because you had a couple with all the wonky schedule. I mean, what do you have? 9 games left, 10 games left? I mean,
yeah, I think 3 more home ones.
Okay,
4
3
home.
more home ones. But
4
overall,
home?
when you look at
4
that
home.
schedule, it's just crazy. Like, I cannot believe we come out of Leagues Cup and it's like, you look and you're like, wow, there's, some of these teams have 10, 11 games left before last weekend. And it's going to be Wednesday, Saturday, just about a little bit of break for some international duty. But some of those teams are playing through it. It's crunch time here. And I think that Pat Noonan, because of the belief he's showed in this group, could for sure get that done, which is crazy to think wooden spoon to possible supporter shield in this short of a time of a turnaround.
God, you said wooden spoon. I got PTSD there for a second. Oh my God. The only thing that gives me comfort is that Nashville is closer to missing the playoffs than top of the table. So those are our buddies down there. So what are the main storylines that you're really looking forward to see outside of Messi, coming down the stretch here?
Well, that's an interesting one, and we don't need to deep dive into Messi because everyone's deep diving into Messi, and rightfully so. Which I will have to say. I mean, on the record, I think it's been incredible for the league in any way, shape, or form. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, you can't deny getting a player like that at this point in his career isn't good for the league, even if he beats you. I think it's well worth whatever he's getting from whoever he's getting it from, but for all of us to enjoy. But I do think down the stretch here, it's going to be some of the Eastern Conference battles that go on in establishing themselves. And sadly, it's a little bit about who is going to end up not having a job maybe at the end of the season because of the way the rosters are built and the competition and the schedule and having to really manage younger players, bringing them through academies, utilize them, rotation, US Open Cup, Leagues Cup, MLS regular season. If you played in CCL, teams like LA Galaxy, even in the West, with Greg Vanney and the money they spent and Ricky Puig, and where should they end up? So there's all these things that I think are little nuggets that every game, very similar to, as we were talking about the World Cup, the parity in this league is you don't know who's going to win on any given night, which I enjoy. I don't know if you guys enjoy that, but I enjoy that I can go into every game not knowing for sure who's going to win that game. And it's not a for sure, result before you even step on the pitch. I like the parity in this league, but at the end of the day, I think, even Gonzalo Pineda was on the hot seat for a little bit. I think he's suspended for this next game. A few too many yellow cards for him. I think he's suspended for the game against Cincinnati. He won't be on the sideline. But I think that NYCFC, you just saw them up close and personal. They don't look great. We'll see if, Nick Cushing has a job at the end of the season. We already saw Bob Bradley, and Toronto still looks like, a hot mess and dumpster fire. So Chicago Fire, they haven't named a permanent manager. So unfortunately, I think a lot of the storylines are ending up to be managerial situations with the way rosters are built now. But I don't know. I mean, I think this game, this is it Wednesday? I can't even remember. It's Monday today,
Yeah,
right?
Wednesday,
The game's on Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's all a blur. I think this is going to be a big one for FC Cincinnati because when they lost to Columbus and they suffered back-to-back results like they did, people are like, oh no, here's the weak spot for FC Cincinnati. Everybody's catching up. Who's going to climb up? And it's only 7 points between, for the supporter shield that was back after the Columbus game and against the rivals. So I think that this is an opportunity for them to make, put another stamp on this one and realize and make everybody kind of take notice that they're not going away. They're not going quietly into the night.
The guys went on vacation after the Leagues Cup. They got to the beach for a few days. They just weren't ready. They just weren't ready for Columbus. That's all. Don't read too
I
much
don't blame them if they did, to be honest. I mean, I think Pat's aged 10 years in one, so we'll see.
Pat Noonan, interesting. You mentioned his coaching, his leadership earlier in the show, has not been recognized for a single MLS Team of the Week. He hasn't got a coaching gig. He's kind of under the radar. I'm not even sure he's going to get considered for Coach of the Year at this point because of I think of some of the other stuff going on in the league. Is everybody overlooking him?
I absolutely think so. And I might be a little bit biased. I don't know if you guys know, but my husband played with Pat at IU. So I have a little extra love in my heart for Pat Noonan. But if you purely are basing it off of results and stats, 100%. I mean, we're talking about Bradley Carnell with St. Louis, right? How can we not talk about Pat Noonan with where they've been? And I don't want to say the W word again, that gives people PTSD. But I mean, it wasn't just one of those, kinds of spoons. It was multiple. And I just think that, where he's got this team and the run they've been on, and regardless of who's been available and the amount of games, I don't know how he doesn't be in the nod for Coach of the Year, let alone just a weekly honor on how he's managing this roster. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think he's being overlooked. I mean, would it shock any of us if somehow Tata Martino won Coach of the Year, even though he only managed like a handful of games? I don't know.
It'd be such a shame.
But no, I think he's. I mean, it's funny though. You're never going to hear Pat say that. I mean, he's the last guy. He's the first guy to give everybody else credit. So
yeah. No, he couldn't care less. Well, we're going to get you out of here. I think we've had I appreciate you stopping by so much. When Brian said you're coming on tonight, I was like, no, she's too busy. She's too important for us.
No, absolutely not. Are you kidding me? This is what I actually really enjoy, is every week doing the weekly with the local people, because I just think that's where the credit goes. When you guys are the ones that keep the sport, living on in that city. And I know long before it was at MLS, FC Cincinnati, and of course the grind through those first few years in MLS. So I fully appreciate all the local broadcasters and writers and people that do podcasts and radio shows, because that's what keeps it going. Not us at the this weird, Apple MLS streaming level. We appreciate the local peeps for sure.
All right. Well, thanks for stopping by, Cincinnati Soccer Talk. And you could check out Kyndra at Apple TV MLS Season Pass. I'm wearing your scarf swag tonight.
I don't even have that scarf, so that just tells you. There you go.
I appreciate it, and we look forward to catching some more broadcasts and watching some more FC Cincinnati this season. So have fun out there.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Have a great night.
All righty. See ya.
Bye.
And we're going to jump right back into it, because FC Cincinnati is still a busy week. We got two matches this week. Atlanta on Wednesday, and then back at home, right? Orlando this weekend. So that was a blast of a conversation. Huh? I felt like I just skipped over it. But Brian, how'd you dig up that guest? What's going on there?
Mute.
I don't know what happened to him. But anyway,
I'm sorry, I was unmuted. That was, jeez. I had a really funny comment, but I'm just gonna blame Brad and go from there.
I felt like I didn't get to say goodbye to the Women's World Cup, and so that was some closure. That was some nice closure, and then turning it into. She's
going to be a voice you're going to hear here in 3.5 years in the United States. Well, hell, maybe less than that when the men are here. And then, I mean, there's talk of going back to back with World Cups, which would be wild. But I mean, she's a leading voice, and it's a tremendous to have her on. She's very knowledgeable, and she's very passionate about keeping the game growing. So love having her on, and I can't wait to talk to her more.
Yeah. All right. Atlanta wins 4-0. Cincinnati 3-0. Does this mean Wednesday is going to be 7-7? I don't know. That's my weird math.
You're an accountant. How are you not better at this?
No cheering for the accountant doing the magic on the field for that one.
I mentioned at the top of the show, I was on an Atlanta podcast, and they were as confused as we were. They were like, "Hey, we've kind of coming out. We entered the break kind of hot, did terrible in Leagues Cup, and then exited Leagues Cup right where we left off, like doing kind of hot. You look at their schedule though. Atlanta beat Philly, they tied LAFC, they beat Seattle, and now they've roasted Nashville. If you go, they do terrible against small teams, but like when they play big clubs, they seem to just go up another notch and play them. So Wednesday, you're going to have a tough battle.
This is also a team that brought in two DPs or two, DP, high profile TAM player. I mean, they're a great team. They're probably one of the hottest teams, and maybe the next hottest team in this league is Orlando. So we are going into a buzzsaw, and then Philly following after a short break. So it's going to be wild to see how we do. And again, like I was going to ask, was it Atlanta or was it Nashville? You saw what happened with Columbus when we were missing, Matt Miazga and Yerson Mosquera, and Nashville had Lucas McNaughton and Jack Mayer back there, no Walker Zimmerman. So it's wild, that drop off there. And I feel a little bit more confident with, Matt Miazga sitting back there, Aubin and Wobodo not on suspension. I don't think it's going to be 4-0, but it's on turf. We don't win on turf.
Well, we saw what Atlanta did to Nashville. You mentioned it without Zimmerman. We don't have Mosquera, Bill. Do we have the same problem we got to watch out for?
Nah. I mean, Mosquera is definitely our number 2, but I mean, I think we would like a little more center back depth, but I think our center back depth is strong enough.
We're the only team that held Messi off the scoreboard. Now he had 2 amazing passes, which were incredible, and Almada, I'm sure, can pick a pass like that. But I look at that right side, Thiago Almada running out there, going after Barreal and having that. I think they have their own Mosquera on that right side too. That seeing how those guys overload and attack Ian Murphy and Alvaro Barreal. I mean, it's very smart that we were able to get Barreal some rest, because he's going to be pinned back again, and we're going to need Arias up that right side or whoever's up there to generate more opportunities, or hold back in what you saw versus Atlanta, boot the ball long and have our DPs and Vasquez, put one in.
Yeah, I'm more worried about the turf than the center back situation.
Oh, good show.
Yeah. I'm 100. Kyndra's talking about like managing and getting home wins. Like, I'm perfectly okay if Acosta does not play on Wednesday night.
Is that because we have a 10-point lead and you're willing to just take an L here?
I would say take an L, but do what we normally do: 60 minutes and then see what happens. Like, I'm deathly afraid of that turf.
I'll jump in. I think Kyndra had a point though. Nashville going into that game kind of on just the emotional toll that it took. So I don't know that. I mean, Atlanta played well. Obviously, they put 4 balls in the back of the net. But who knows? Who knows what kind of downtick that Nashville had playing in that game. So I don't know that we saw a true measurement of Atlanta. But I do think, again, we go back to the Miami game and we held some of the best players in the world to nothing for a long time. And I think we've got some depth. We don't have all the depth we want at center back. Playing on turf it's just, I hate watching it. Hate watching games on turf, especially in Atlanta. But I think we got to find a way to get Barreal up the field. He's going to be pinned back, but we've seen, the last couple games when he's been pinned back, we just don't get that attack going. Until I guess Arias is coming up on the right side. That's good. That's helpful. When Powell was there, it was not. But if we can find a way to shift, is Murphy the guy that's playing left center back in this match?
Probably. You'd have to imagine. He did okay in New York. So
yeah, I think if we can find a way to shift our defense and get him up the field even a couple times, working the ball with Acosta down the left, if Acosta's in, I think we'll do all right.
Joseph on Facebook saying, can we sign Arias to a lifetime deal? I really like Clifford's response right behind it. Do you know what happens to Cincinnati players the day after they get a lifetime deal? Arias, though, looking good. A lot of FC Cincinnati players stepping up when it matters most. This is the time of the year where you do need a couple players just to come off that bench and thrive. We're going to dive into that here in a second. I'm going to give you guys, the three of you, a chance to pick where you want to go next because we only got 15 minutes of the show left. I'm going to read supporter names, and when we come back, let me know if you want to talk the almost win versus Miami or the 3-0 New York, the rise of some of our players there. So real quick, we'll jump to this. Thanks to everyone that supports us over on Patreon. Our Growler Cup is finishing up round 2. We're about to start the good old playoffs. One of the best times of year in the Growler Cup to figure out who's going to take this thing home and claim the season championship. If you want to join us and play, you can support us over on Patreon. That also keeps the website going, keeps the photographers on the field, keeps this podcast and all 3 podcasts actually in the maintenance behind it. So we appreciate all of you that do support it. Give a shout out to Red Lee, John Davidson, Mike Hudson, Laurel Failer, Matthew Adamczyk, Riley, Stephen Burke, James Denbrough, Tom Newhouse, Brian Weigel, Brian Gills, Dan Alberts, Will Kychek, Ian Rexroad, Carl Feit, Christina Sharma, Kyle Pohl, Rupesh, Tom Beaversdorf, Jason, who is super average, John Haskell, Ryan Ernst, Mary Lou, Wes Anastasi, Rob Pierce, Clifford Adams, Thomas Stepps, Pierce Johnson, Mike Parentis, David Wiederhold, Rob Gassell, Bradley Weigel, Kevin Day, Paul Hedger, Alex Carnegas, Dave Tingler, Patrick Lahani, Mike Bowman, Brett Sova, Kevin Cooney, Joe Max, Jack Emery, Sarah Gorman, David Moore, Bob Ryan, Ryan Durkin, Bart Labita, Rob Triple, Joe Lohr, Bill Leopold, Maureen De Moray, Jose, David Myers, John Cafardi, Olympico, Joseph of Hanger at 937, Jackson Fight, Justin Blair, Kyle Phillips, Ashley Newhouse, Dan Burns, Coach Clip. Hey, guys, I saw you in Columbus. How you doing, Coach? Justin Gregory, Scott Dalton, Jason Ashcraft, Jeffrey Tebbets, Troll, Jackson Fight, Matt Bauer, Pete Koch, and a new Patreon, Matt Godsey. Thanks for signing up and supporting CST. All right, guys, what'd you decide? Where are we going here? Miami or New York? Steer me. Brian's muted again.
Brian just loves that mute button.
Which one do we learn the most about our team from?
Ooh, I don't know.
So I kind of wanted to talk a minute about Aaron Boupendza, more specific players. I thought he had a great. I thought he played very well versus Miami, but he wasn't getting into great positions because our tactics were to literally put pressure on Busquets, not let him pick the passes to get Messi in the right spots, and he did very well chasing after that. Did he lose focus time to time? Yes. I thought Brandon Vasquez was on key and, his goal was outstanding. But in New York, it was great to see him get off the board real early and kind of set the tone for the game. I thought he played very well. Linking up play, yeah, he's not as crisp yet, and we lost some possession due to some errant passes. But overall, he did very well hold up play. The thing that pissed me off was at the, 65th minute mark, whatever it was, Lucho didn't pass him the ball. And the guy had a 5-year-old meltdown. Man, mommy doesn't love me. Yeah, blah, blah. Throwing his arms up, making a big deal, looking in the stands who's this jabroni not passing me the ball? And then we win the ball in the midfield, and the dude's crying, and he's offside. And if he was paying attention, he could have got the damn ball. Okay? That pissed me off. If you're going to show up our MVP, you're not going to be around here very long, bud. So fix it. I love seeing there's a stoppage of play 3 minutes later, and Pat Noonan called his ass over and gave him, the business. And I kind of went to Boston and said, man, you want to send a message, sub his ass out right now. And he came out at the 72nd minute. But I did love seeing that stuff's not going to fly under Noonan. And I really hope it wears off and he buys in that he's not the guy, but he's one of the guys. So I want to see his mentality. And, I've been the apologist for Boupendza, but that really sticks out for me. And is he the right guy to be here?
Well, when Noonan took over this team last year, that was a big sticking point for him was culture, right? And we had a lot of issues in those 3 years that we don't talk about very much with, issues, right? And players, basically making it known on the field, on the pitch, in front of the fans, what they thought of the other players and the things they did. And Noonan came in and just said, I'm done with that. Right. That's the first thing we're changing is we're a team, and anybody who acts like that sits on the bench. And, he said, I don't care if his name's Lucho Acosta or not. Basically we're going to change that. And I think last year he did. And that was what, propelled that team forward, to the heights that it got to. So I've been a little worried maybe that would diminish over time, but it's good to see that, he's still taking that somewhat serious. So.
Yeah, I think, a few games ago we saw the chemistry where the lack of chemistry where he wasn't pressing. Boupendza wasn't pressing when he needed to press. He wasn't making the runs that Acosta was expecting him to make, and Acosta kind of getting in his face. And to see that turn around this week and him thinking he can get away with throwing it back at Acosta was, I was glad to see that he didn't get away with that. But I am concerned about the chemistry. It looked like it was starting to come together. And then you have a moment like that. We'll see, how they rebound. I like the way Noonan's handling it, but we'll see where it goes. It's got to get fixed.
Yeah, he's too new. I expected chemistry issues with the new player, right? That's to be expected. But you can't get that frustrated about it. I mean, any short guy with tattoos in the city, I see him, don't want to hug him because I just think there's a chance it could be Lucho Acosta. So you're not gonna win over the fans that fast, especially versus Acosta, right? So Boupendza's got to. Brian, good shout out. I totally had forgotten about it, but that was a big moment in the game. It was a moment that you only get 90 minutes on the pitch. You can't spend one of them throwing a fit, especially when you do get the ball like that.
And it wasn't just like it was like, 35 seconds of him whining about it. So, sorry.
I will say this while we're talking about Boupendza, it's nice to see someone shoot from outside the box. When he gets it on his left foot, he's not afraid to hit it. And I like seeing that. We need more of that.
Yeah. I think he's good for this team. Just keep your head in the game, buddy. And I think Cincinnati, you're a workhorse. Your head's in the game. And you get along with the guys. Cincinnati fans are going to fall in love with you. It's just don't attack a guy we love. That's a really good way to not get the Cincinnati fans behind your back. All right, if we're going to talk about great players, we got to talk about Brett, right? Absolutely killer performance.
Brian,
what are you laughing at, Brian?
No, I know this is going. Y'all go first.
The play, an assist, first team start. I don't know. It's hard to criticize. I know he's
played well versus Miami, and him and Messi. He locked down Messi. He's a legend. Brett Halsey, starter for Barreal. Is that what everybody's going to go with? Holy crap!
That's not what I'm going to go with, but
I
do think he's a solid backup there. I think the guy, I said it earlier, he was my best. He's all out all the time. He makes some mistakes, but man, that kid, he's going to be predictable. I think over time, he goes to the line and he cuts it back, but he always gets to the end line.
Dude, I'll take that every day of the week. I really will.
And he's created chances. Like I said, he pinged it off of the keeper. He pinged it off of Boupendza once. That again, I think he was going for Vasquez. Boupendza got there first. But yeah, he's not the starter, but man, I'll take him as a sub in there.
Yeah, what do you think about that comment, Brian? Barreal is leaving. He's a solid developing replacement.
Not a replacement, a solid backup for whoever is Barreal's replacement. I think is very, guys. It's about improving the roster, and it's always about the next step. If you want to give, this is gonna be funny. If you want to give Brett Halsey the starting left back job, we're just gonna be Nashville, who's sitting there in 7th place in the conference. Like, you don't want to be Nashville. You want to be, the up and comers like FC Cincinnati, the people who are being aggressive. So, you got to go after somebody else. It doesn't mean he's not great to have like 5 or 6 starts on him. Great. Play 15, 20 minutes every game, but he's played 110 minutes.
So the situation is we go out, we get more depth at center back. We cover that spot and let the kid get downfield a little bit more frequently. How are you feeling about that? Is that a possibility?
I think we need. I think we need two. I think we need two good left backs. I don't think we can. I mean, like just having Barriel, right? He's phenomenal, but even just having Barriel is enough, right?
He's leaving.
But I'm saying we need two. Period. And I think Halsey's great as a second center back. I mean, I
center left back. Yes.
Sorry, thank you. As a left wing back, but you know I like him. I've liked everything I've seen. He's exciting. He takes on players. He's fun. But at the same time, it's 110 minutes with a short period in Miami and a start against New York, right? So let's not like bank the whole team on him as a replacement left back at this point.
If he has to start one or two more games the rest of the season, I'm like, okay, yeah, let's go. I'd rather see him over the alternative of Alvis Powell or Ray Gaddis at this moment.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Oh, new contract, Alvis Powell. You're going to be seeing a lot more of him, buddy. But
Supporter Shield rundown.
Oh yeah. I guess so. What's the
it's
point of this?
9:56. So let's talk about our pathway. Somebody reading the rundown. I'm just taking over the show. People have been asking us, what's the situation look like over the last 9 games? What's the clinch miss moment and everything else? And let's be real, Cincinnati's 10 points at 54 over St. Louis. With each of those teams have 9 games to go. Philadelphia and New England have 10 games left, and they're both at 43. In all honesty, both Philadelphia, New England have to really step it up on their points per game. I think Orlando is certainly a possibility there, but they only have 9 games left. So if Philadelphia and New England, again, both sitting 11 points behind us, either of those two teams can get to about 2 points per game over their last 10. That puts them about 63 points. And again, that's astronomical because Cincinnati plays Philly. Philly plays Columbus. I mean, all these teams are battling. Orlando's, they're all going to take points off each other. So realistically, I think if FC Cincinnati can get to that magic, like 63 points, so like 9-10 more points, I think you're going to see a Supporter Shield trophy here in Cincinnati. That's why, I'm not criticizing Noonan so hard versus Miami, because New York City FC, that game was an absolute must win in terms of if you want to get this, it's not the glamorous win, but that's a game you have to win. Yep. And we have tough games ahead of us. We go to Atlanta, we host Orlando, we go to Philly. These are 3 ridiculously tough opponents, and we need to get points out of these games. So very realistic that I think we can still win this. We have some wiggle room, but it's going to be still juicy, I think, coming down the end here.
I'm going to be honest. I did not know Orlando was 5th place until you put that up there.
I mean, they got Facundo Torres, good player. I think they're selling one of their forwards right now to somebody abroad, but I mean, they're a good team. Got a good coach down there. We played them to a 0-0 draw down there. So it's going to be very interesting. They've always played us very tough. It's kind of like that Miami, like monkey on the back kind of deal. I think we did pretty well last year, but it's not going to be easy.
I've kind of looked at it a little different way, Brian, when I look at the Supporter Shield race, right? If you look at the points per game, right? I mean, there's no team but us that's making over 2 points per game, right? So assuming a team steps it up and they're making 2 points per game, and then you look at the bottom of the table now. Yeah. Okay.
Orlando's I think they've won 5 of the last 6, and then they drew the 2 before that.
Okay. So they've stepped up. But if you look down at the bottom, there's only a few teams, maybe 2 or 3, that have been making less than 1 point per game. Right. So, you kind of look at it and say, well, if we absolutely start sucking, we're probably still going to make 1 point per game. If another team comes on, they're making 2 points per game. That means that there's a delta of about 1 point per game. So every game in the season, there's a chance for a team to basically gain a point on us if we start sucking and they start doing well. And you start to look at that and you say, well, we have 11 games left. Some teams maybe have 12. We have a 10-point gap. there's not really a very realistic chance of them passing us. Obviously, as we get a smaller sample size, that's going to get more wild cardish, but at least still this far out, it just seems very unlikely to see a team able to pass us with this many points on them. So,
And the beauty of it is a lot of those teams, say from St. Louis, are Eastern Conference teams, right? So when we beat them, we separate
6
ourselves
points.
even
Mhm.
more.
And they're beating each other up too.
Right on.
Yep.
Now, how funny would this be? Like my buddy Joe Rancy's been on the show, huge Philly fan. He's like, yeah, I still think FC Cincinnati could clinch the Supporter Shield in Philly in like 3 games. I'm like, well, that's a stretch, but like, I wonder if Albright and Noon are like, hey guys, here's like $100,000 sitting right here if we can just run the table the next 3. You know, like Mike LaHood used to say when he'd play games, like the owner or the president would come down with like $50,000 in cash, but you guys win this with this game. Here you go. No, I'd love to see that.
There was a stretch in the first half of the season before Leagues Cup where we sat around on the show, and it was a tough 3-game stretch, and I remember like almost all of us said it's going to be 2 out of 3 is probably the best we're going to do because it looked impossible, and then of course we won
The
all
Gold
3.
Cup and everything too.
Yeah, it was just absolute bonkers. We were on quite the run. So I won't discount FC Cincinnati with the players they have, with the skill they have to not go on a 3-game run, even if it is Atlanta, Orlando, Philly. But realistically, you guys are talking about points per game. You win the rest of these home games, pick up some road points, and I think you're fine, Bill. I think you're right on the right track. That's really all you need. But go ahead and get some away form while you're at it. All right, let's get into your final thoughts. The clock's ticking away on us, unfortunately. Who do we got here to start with? What about Mr. Indiana?
Yeah, I think we hit on my final thoughts. Is just the road ahead with some tough games. It was good to see the statement win against New York City, and who knew what we were going to see coming out of Miami? We were on the uptick, and I think the statement win against New York City. They were down players, they weren't at full strength, but man, it was good to see our guys rebound. So I'm optimistic moving forward. I think we're bringing home the Supporter Shield. I'll say it now. I know we've talked about it, but there you go. Final thoughts.
All right, no, everybody's trying to jinx us on this show tonight. Brian Weigel.
I wanted to be a jerk with this because I was big time like no Messi jerseys in the Bailey, which I'm very still on that train. But I was fortunate enough to be hanging out with a family as a dad, an uncle, and a little boy on his birthday that flew from Mexico to see the game Wednesday night for Lionel Messi. And, it meant the world to those guys to see Messi there. And it kind of changed my perspective a little bit. I've always been a proponent of, I think Messi's great for this league. And if we can capture any of these people that are coming in and tuning in, I really think we're going to be a juggernaut. But it was super cool to see the excitement around. And yes, they weren't all in orange and blue colors yet. Like we were tremendous. The Bailey was exceptional. The stadium, when you're talking about the Sha-La-La, Bill, like I've never seen the Sha-La-La go around the stadium like that ever. But it was still neat to see like the passion that he drives out of these people. And I just hope we can get there one day and keep building this project of Major League Soccer in this club. So just, it makes me optimistic. I'm super excited for our future because it's going to be exceptional.
All right, spin it in the Wolfman.
Yes, I'm going to, I think, punt away from my original thoughts on my final thoughts, but
Yeah, I didn't intentionally steal your thoughts there, Bill. My bad.
no, I think we covered it anyway along the way. But I do, since we're on the Messi train, I think, people are discounting Messi and saying that they're not going to make the playoffs, but man, the way they're playing right now, right, basically undefeated. Sure, they've got some international stuff coming up and whatever, but I'm just not willing to discount him at this point. I think there's a really good chance we're going to see Messi and Miami in the playoffs. And to me, the only way they make that is to come in at the bottom of the table. And as Brian said, we're going to be the Supporter Shield. So we're going to be at the top of the table and they're going to be at the bottom. I'm getting tired thinking about us playing them like 4 more times this season. So But it is something in my mind that is a very strong possibility at this point. So let's get that sha-la-la all the way around the stadium this time for the next Messi event.
We'll be fine for the next one, Bill. We just got to practice our PKs, and I think just in case the MLS Cup goes to PKs, you know.
Yeah.
Or the first playoff game, or better luck, they don't make it.
For the first round, it's Leagues Cup style. It's 90 minutes and PKs. So every game.
Yeah. You did hear he's missing 3 games, right? For international duty.
Yep.
So
I think and he didn't play 60 minutes against New York, and they were still up 1-0 when he came on.
Yeah, they're gonna have to rely on the rest of those squad if they have any chance of making it. Missing 3 games is a lot when you're down that as far as they are. And like we talked about, teams above Miami are going to be picking up points too. So it'll be interesting to watch, although I'm more worried about the top of the table than the bottom at the moment. But it'll be interesting to watch. Please do not be our first round game. I'm not scared of Messi. I just would like to enjoy the first place spoils. You know, you're supposed to get a reward for being in first place.
Yep, I agree.
Not a punishment.
Somehow it just feels Cincinnati though, doesn't it?
Yeah. Just it's wrong for sure. But thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. We've had a fun podcast tonight. Appreciate our guest coming in. I hope you guys enjoyed that as well. We'll see you next week. Double match this week. So we have a lot more to talk about when you join us next Monday night.